Emails revealed a couple joked about a, quote, legitimate approach to get their daughters into USC. Massimo Giannoli turned down a campus visit, telling an administrator they were, quote, squared away. He then forwarded it to Lachlan, writing, quote, the nicest I've been at blowing off somebody. The couple are accused of paying $500,000 in bribes. Both have pleaded not guilty.
The Duchess of Sussex appearing to feel right at home in Canada. Meghan Markle making her second public appearance since stepping back from royal duties, attending a feminist climate change group. Her estranged father is expected to testify against her in a lawsuit with a newspaper accused of illegally publishing a letter that she wrote to her father. In the meantime, Prince Harry is still back in the UK, hosting the Rugby League World Cup 2021 draw at Buckingham Palace today.
Time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. First up, the good. Don't have time to go to the gym?
Just doing my workout. Tuesday's arms and back.
Well, you asked me to come by, sir.
Oh, did I?
Yes.
Oh, it's a deep burn.
Stick it to the gun show. All right, go to the movies instead. Like Rob, he goes all the time. Researchers in London studied people watching the new version of Aladdin. They found their heart rates were similar to a light workout. The study was funded by a British movie theater chain.
Yeah, sit there and eat popcorn. That'll get you in shape. Next, the bad. Scary moments aboard a United Airlines flight overnight. Look at this. Flames shooting from an engine, forcing the aircraft to make an emergency landing. The mechanical issue happening just moments after it took off from Newark, right down the street. Passengers were booked on another flight to L.A.
Wow. And the ugly. A $1,200 question leaves Jeopardy contestants scratching their heads. Watch this.
1/53 of California's House delegation is this Intelligence Committee chairman. His name is Adam Schiff.
Not one contestant buzzing in, despite Schiff leading impeachment proceedings against President Trump.
Very surprising. All right, Fox and Friends starts right now.
The articles head to the Senate, but farmers are happy, bankers are happy because of this. The president signed that trade deal, phase 1, with China.
I know China's happy too, right?
I would assume so.
And take a look. Once again, we have a split-screen nation. Impeachment, the economy.
Which side are you on?
If I could just speak from personal interest, as a Met fan, I'm kind of flipping to this side because I think they're about to fire their manager, right, Ted? Before he actually manages the game because of the biggest scandal in baseball in my lifetime. But besides that, it makes the steroid and Pete Rose thing seem like kids' play.
All right. Meanwhile, Griff Jenkins joins us from our nation's capital. Griff, yesterday was a split-screen day. On one screen, you have Nancy Pelosi. The other side, you got the president and the trade deal.
It was indeed, and I got nothing on the Mets, but what a day in Washington at the White House. Another record day on Wall Street after the president signs phase 1 of the China trade deal.
This is something that far beyond even this deal, it's going to lead to a even stronger world peace. We now have a big investment in each other and in getting along with each other.
But at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, smiles and souvenir pins usually reserved for landmark legislation. This time, as Speaker Pelosi signs the articles of impeachment, sending them to the Senate, seeking the removal of President Trump.
So this is a very serious matter, and we take it to heart in a really solemn way. In a very solemn way. It's about the Constitution. It's about the Republic, if we can keep it. And they shouldn't be frivolous with the Constitution of the United States.
The Senate takes over at noon with the exhibition of the articles, followed by the swearing in of Chief Justice Roberts and senators at 2. Opening arguments set for Tuesday. And we now know the names of the 7 House managers. Intel Chairman Adam Schiff, Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler, along with Reps Jeffries, Demings, Lofgren, Crow, and Garcia. And perhaps a further sign of the times, guys, before the Senate starts the impeachment process at 11 a.m. today, Leader McConnell says they'll vote to ratify the USMCA deal and send that to the president for signature. guys.
So it's like a good news, bad news thing for the president. Hey, good news, they signed your USMCA. Bad news, you're going to be impeached.
Right.
Thank you, Griff. But ultimately, after they walk the articles from the House to the Senate, it's going to lead in a journey that winds up acquitting the President of the United States. That's pretty much what everybody believes.
Do you think they realized when they walked the impeachment articles across to the Senate that the cameras were there following them?
Of course they did. No, there was only one camera there that was allowed. It was the Sergeant of Arms, and it was the Clerk of the Senate. Of the House, excuse me, with those 7 managers walking solemnly 2 by 2 to hand over a note to the senators to say Nancy has signed the article.
Did they hand the press those ceremonial pens as they walked by?
No, they didn't. But Brian, to your point about did they know the TV cameras there? Absolutely, because this has been, and we have said this has been a TV show from the get-go. What's interesting, though, and all along Nancy Pelosi has talked about how prayerful she is, but on that platter with the silver platter with the pens. Did you realize there were 24 of them, and you know whose name was on them? Her name.
Pelosi.
Her name. It was a commemorative thing. Generally in Washington, you give out the commemorative pens after you sign a big bill like the Affordable Care Act or the Clean Air and Water Act or something like that. But instead, to mark an achievement, this is the biggest achievement of the Democrats in this Congress, and that is impeaching the president.
She was handing them to many people who have been screaming impeach, impeach, impeach since the very beginning. I'm sure they're going to frame these pens, put it up in their office, have conversations with other Democrats and say, this is the pen that Nancy used to sign the articles of impeachment. But people on social media were upset about this. They were criticized for this, slamming for them for gloating and celebrating, said it's embarrassing, it's a spectacle, it's tacky, they look like prizes.
Well, we'll put it this way, Steve, you opened up by saying, you know, not a good day for the president. On one hand, a real good day. On the other hand, because of the China deal, but it could eventually be really good. Think about this. If the Senate gets a chance to see this, hear this story, on both sides. They're going to have maybe a week where both sides give their side of the story. Here's why the president didn't do it. Here's why what the president we think the president did do. And whether they take witnesses or not, it'll be brief, the whole thing. And then he gets exonerated. And then he has the State of the Union the next day with two trade deals at the window of his back, which they say project to have a half point on the GDP, which is already growing at over 2%. This thing could reverse very quickly as she continues to hand out her pens at the gift shop.
You know, but the problem is the State of the Union could happen during the impeachment process, in which case the president will be there in the House and he will be right out there, the 100 jurors, he'll make his case directly to them. But yesterday...
I say he postpones if that happens.
Well, we'll see. There are a number of Republicans who say, Mr. President, why don't you postpone it? But if I were him, or you've got to figure the way Donald Trump thinks, he's a disruptor.
Did you feel
in the middle of it, it would be his opportunity to be his own witness without being cross-examined.
Did you feel like yesterday watching that, though, it was a religious experience? It was like going to church?
People did.
That's what the media thought.
People did.
Watch this.
People did.
There's a sacramental quality to this. There's a ritual.
I'm so glad Chris used the word ritual. There is something almost religious to it.
And I think Pelosi's a real believer in this, about ritual.
She said he's been impeached forever. They can never erase that. And
there's
we know that's something...
a sacramental statement for life. Like a priest for life is a perfect statement of what she is. I think she's very reverential.
That's called trash talking. There's nothing reverential about that. If the last time they went to a religious experience, the priest was trash talking other religions, that would have been similar to this. Because you don't say something like, he'll be impeached forever if it's a somber, sober experience. Here's Ted Cruz.
The good news is that the partisan circus in the House is over. Nancy Pelosi's circus is done. And we're not going to see the one-sided show trial that the House is engaged in for months and months and months. That farce is over. In the Senate, here's what I hope happens. I hope the Senate, I'm confident, the Senate will conduct a fair trial. That means we'll give the House managers an opportunity to present their case. We'll listen to what they have to say. But then we're going to do something that the House didn't do, which is we're going to give President Trump a full opportunity to defend himself, to present his case, to lay out the facts and evidence and law that the House ignored.
And you got to figure Nancy Pelosi says, you know, he will be impeached forever because she knows he will be acquitted forever by the Senate. So that's one of the things. He also, Ted Cruz just mentioned House managers. The most famous of the House managers, and Griff listed their names a little while ago, is, of course, Adam Schiff. And if you watch a lot of television, you know that the Democrats have tried to make him the star of the show. Their big prosecutor. And yet, as it turns out, maybe America not so interested in this whole impeachment thing. We've seen the polls that have gone the other way. And take a look at Jeopardy. This episode ran last night. This was taped in California, which is where Adam Schiff is a leading congressman. Does anybody know him? On the Jeopardy panel, roll the tape.
1/53 of California's House delegation is this Intelligence Committee chairman. His name is Adam Schiff.
Wow.
That's embarrassing.
It is. But by the way, I've never remembered talking more about Jeopardy in my life. It's the reason why it's the most popular show in America. I just thought a great sweeping statements from Jonathan Turley, who we used to have on our show when he was wise enough to be a contributor. He said,
I think he's joined another network.
The presser seems entirely structured to defend Pelosi as a master strategist on impeachment, despite every indication to the contrary. The Rush impeachment was a blunder of the first order, but this seems more about the House members than the House case. They have now lost control, reluctantly. Game on in the Senate. I was fascinated by this. They say that the senators mostly weren't following this to a degree.
America wasn't.
Yeah,
why would they?
So they were saying they really have to bone up on the actual case itself. They really weren't paying attention.
I think America knows the headlines, but they don't care about all the details. They don't care who's serving on what committees. Most people just know their senators, maybe a few congressmen or women that live in their state. They don't know who's over each committee. They don't care. They have other things to worry about. They're trying to work hard and enjoy their lives and not focus on all this stuff in Washington.
Right.
I mean, more people know who Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are than they do Adam Schiff.
100%. And that's, you know, we've been talking about the Democratic debates. The viewership has been going down. I think the first one had like 18 million, something like that. The last one over on CNN, the ratings went up a little bit.
You know what Stephanie Grisham said with the White House? I thought this was interesting. When you look at the front page, the difference, the contrast of what the Democrats are doing and the president signing trade deals and USMCA, she said he's working for the American people. Democrats continue working against the president.
We should book her on this show.
She's going to be up in 2 hours.
All right, good job, Steve. I appreciate you getting right on that. Meanwhile,
with my shoe phone.
The most intriguing thing about the debate was when it was over, and they brought the music up, and then we watched the stage. We say, what's going on between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, longtime friends, same socialist ideology?
Not shaking your hand.
They looked like they were getting mad. The question is, would we ever find out what was said?
Well, yes, absolutely, because Bernie Sanders was asked about it, and he said, "Oh, what were we talking about at the end? We were talking about the weather." Really? Not really. Remember earlier, Bernie was asked whether or not he had said, you know, a woman can't win in 2020, and he said, I didn't say that. And Elizabeth Warren, CNN took her side and said, how do you feel after he said that?
Which was a big mistake by Abby Phillip.
Why would they talk about the weather after a debate?
Ainsley, they didn't talk about the weather. CNN released the
us to believe that?
Watch this. They talked about lying.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You called me. You told me. All right, let's not do it now.
I don't want to get in the middle of it. I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Hit the road, Tom Steyer. You never should have been on the stage to begin with. Tom Steyer, again, getting in the way of the democratic process. Wow. How real was that? And who benefits from that exchange going public?
All right, so
obviously Elizabeth Warren.
Why?
Well, because it supports...
Yeah, it makes her look tough.
It makes her look better than him because he's back on his heels. And you got to wonder why CNN released that audio.
And of course...
Why did they release that audio?
Of course, when
it was not broadcast.
When she is asked the question during the debate, she says, yes, he told me that a woman couldn't win. And he's saying, no, we didn't. But then when she goes over and tries to shake his hand, she doesn't shake his hand. So I thought maybe she's not shaking his hand because she's mad at him for lying.
And Bernie is surging right now.
But now when we heard that audio, it's obvious he did say it. Because then he lied, said he was talking about the weather.
Right. But he says, you called me a liar. So, you know, something is going on behind the scenes. And,
but he didn't want to deal with it. He wanted
because
to
Tom Steyer walked up, we didn't get the rest of the story.
But I will say this. I know. Thanks, Tom. He can't hear me, can he? I'm not sure if he's watching.
If he's watching.
I'm not really sure.
He might be.
I know there's at least one billionaire watching. I just can't think of his name. But I would say this. The person who has the most to lose and is more desperate is Elizabeth Warren. She needs somehow to get that socialist vote back because every day she loses a little bit more. And yesterday she had said she had an all-time high for one-day donations.
Well, I will say this. The opposition research from all the candidates is trying to trash each other right now. You're going to see a lot of it over the next week or two. Because that's just how it operates. You know, whether it's opposition research getting trash on Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, it is out there.
All right.
And let's see how much it pops up.
And you know what they say? Politics is not racquetball.
That's what they say.
Who says that?
Hey, Jillian, will you do some headlines? Just do some more headlines for us.
All right, sounds good. Good morning to you guys. Let's start off with this story because a radio call to air traffic control raising questions after a Delta jet dumps fuel on dozens of kids on a California playground. According to the FAA, the pilot did not inform them of the emergency procedure as it returned to LAX. Take a listen to this.
Okay, so you don't need to hold the dump fuel or anything like that?
Negative. We'll be requesting runway 25 right.
At least 60 kids and adults were treated for minor skin and eye irritation. The death of an ROTC cadet is ruled an accident. Prosecutors say another cadet unintentionally shot and killed Cesar Cortez at their high school in Bel Air, Texas.
They were friends. He did not, based on the evidence we have right now, intend to kill his friend. Yet he did.
Family and friends honoring Cortez with a candlelight vigil. The 19-year-old had already enlisted in the Army. The suspect was found hiding next to a dumpster. He's facing manslaughter charges. A brand new migrant caravan is making its way to the U.S. Hundreds of migrants from Honduras starting the long journey. They're traveling on foot, by bus, and on the back of trucks. Some are now in Guatemala, but others have already been sent back because they don't have IDs. Homeland Security says they are helping at border checkpoints in Guatemala. New Orleans Saints legend Steve Gleason receives Congress's highest civilian honor for his brave fight against ALS. Did you see this yesterday? The former safety famously blocked a punt in the team's first home game after Hurricane Katrina. He was diagnosed with the disease in 2011. Gleason uses a computer program to talk because he can no longer speak.
The truth is that we all experience pain in our lives. But I believe that the problems we face are our opportunity and define our human purpose.
Quarterback Drew Brees fought back tears as he honored his former teammate.
Steve, you're an inspiration. You are a source of strength to so many, especially me. A true American hero.
Gleason is the first football player to receive the Congressional Gold Medal. It was such a moving, powerful speech yesterday, just listening to him. I mean, it was...
Right.
What a story.
Bless his heart.
Thank you, Jillian.
They're like racing to a cure for that. They're starting to make some real progress.
I know.
He said his wife was in the crowd, and he said, you know, this isn't the life we planned.
Right.
Like, you just hear those stories from...
Bless her
them.
heart, because it's hard taking care of someone, too, but he's so
unbelievable.
young.
I know.
What a tragic disease. Life is short. Everyone appreciate it. Use this day to do good.
And Congress honored him yesterday. Jillian,
it's
thank
wonderful.
you again. Meanwhile, we'll talk about something else coming up. President Trump landed that historic trade deal with China, Phase 1. Next up, a hog farmer who was at the signing ceremony says the deal could be a life changer for people in the pig business.
And Pete Buttigieg says you need to be afraid. You need to be very afraid of climate change.
I agree with everything you said except one. And that's the idea that we need to be more scared.
Together we are righting the wrongs of the past and delivering a future of economic justice and security for American workers, farmers, and families. It just doesn't get any bigger than this. The farmers are going to be so happy.
Let's see, and some are really happy. Many were in the East Room yesterday. President Trump hailing the historic Phase 1 trade deal with China and this impact on our nation's farmers. They're supposed to get another $40 billion in purchases, up from 24, and then $200 billion overall. Beijing agreeing to buy more American products to that tune. It includes a $32 billion increase in agricultural goods this year. Here to react is North Carolina hog farmer and president of the National Pork Producers Council, David Herring, who was at yesterday's signing. David, what gives you the greatest sense of relief today?
Well, we think it's a great first step, this trade one or phase one trade deal. And the greatest thing, it would be China's commitment to buy $40 billion worth of ag products. And just that commitment alone should be very good for all of ag and especially pork.
All right, so we understand that they're experiencing some type of swine flu among their pigs right now. They desperately need your pork.
Well, China's the largest producer of pork in the world. They produce about 50% of all the pork. And they have had a devastation from African swine fever. They've lost somewhere between 40 and 50% of their herd. So the opportunity to sell pork to China is unparalleled.
How tough has it been for the last 2.5 years on you? You just told me the tariffs from China to you, to your product, is at 68%, up from 12%.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we need unparalleled access to China and leveled playing fields. And what we're asking the Chinese government to drop the punitive tariffs so we have more access. That's the most important thing for pork producers today.
So even though you left the White House yesterday and feel optimistic, you don't have the answer to that question. What are the tariffs going down to? You still right now think it's at 68%.
Well, it is at 68% from what we know. We really feel the litmus tests for tracking China's progress in meeting the commitments they made is pork. It's a very important, it's a staple in their diet. It is a big component of their consumer price index, and they need affordable pork to be able to manage food price inflation that has been caused by African swine fever. And the United States produces the most affordable pork in the world. So the opportunity is unparalleled, and we would really like to take advantage of that opportunity. It would be awesome for rural America and our farm families.
David, guys, you got to get an answer to that. I'm sure there is an answer. It's a shame you left the White House yesterday without knowing it. David Herring, my fingers are crossed that we drop that down to something you can live with and can feel the profit. David Herring, North Carolina's hog farmer, president of the National Pork Producers Council. Thanks so much, and hopefully better days are straight ahead.
Thank you, Brian.
You got it. And I don't mind getting up early with a farmer. They just seem to be the only ones to beat us up early. Meanwhile, straight ahead, an illegal immigrant charged with murdering an elderly woman in New York City, instead of being deported, he was protected by the city's sanctuary policies. Tommy Lahren says these liberal policies put all Americans in danger. She joins us next.
We have some quick headlines for you, starting with a Fox News alert. Iran is enriching more uranium now than before the nuclear deal. The Iranian president making that claim as the regime faces possible new sanctions. Britain, France, and Germany are putting pressure on Iran for breaking commitments set in the 2015 deal. The U.S. pulled out of that agreement in 2018. And amid tensions with Iran, relatives of U.S. paratroopers stationed in Kuwait are reportedly getting menacing messages on social media. According to the Military Times, one message says, quote, "Go back to your country. The recent attack."
Immigrant communities that suffer the most from sanctuary city policies because these people, these criminal aliens, reoffend oftentimes in those communities, making them more dangerous. So that's the question that the leaders of New York, of course here in California, need to be asked and need to answer, because the American people are being put at risk. And really, anybody living in this country is at risk when you let criminal aliens walk the streets.
Well, we have heard from Republican lawmakers here in New York State about how New York State is no longer as safe as it was before the criminal justice reform, where now we have this no bail thing. And, you know, there's a story here in New York City about how a guy reportedly, allegedly, has robbed a bank 6 times. And every time it's like, oh, he only robbed a bank. He didn't have a gun. He had a note, so we're going to let him out. But then with this sanctuary city stuff, you just express the frustration that a lot of people have. The mayor's office was asked about this situation, and they submitted this particular statement. They said, "We mourn the family of Ms. Fuentes, If Mr. Khan is convicted, the city will cooperate with federal officials in accordance with local law. It is shameful that the Trump administration is politicizing this tragedy. Tommy, who is politicizing immigration?
Well, exactly. And, you know, that statement, it sounds great to put out a statement, but it's a little too late. And I'm sure the family of this woman and a family of those who have been murdered by illegal immigrants, especially criminal aliens, especially when detainers have been placed on them by ICE, they want to know why these people are allowed to walk the streets. And you couple that with the felon-friendly policies that you just mentioned, of course, in New York and absolutely here in California, and you have mayhem. You have Gotham City. Someone needs to answer for this.
All right, so let's talk about your series on Fox Nation, 24 Hours. You travel with ICE. Do you want to set up this clip?
Yeah, let's take a look. I was here in Los Angeles. I did a ride-along with our ICE agents right here in a sanctuary state, and you'll see the result.
Unfortunately, there's no shortage of criminal aliens in Southern California. Couple that with the sanctuary policies and the non-cooperative jurisdictions, and it just really puts the public at risk.
That's scary, Tommy.
Oh, it absolutely is. In California and New York and a lot of places across this country, we are shielding illegal immigrants, criminal illegal immigrants, and it needs to end. And my ride along with ICE, I could see the lengths that these ICE agents have to go to get criminal aliens off the street. Again, I ask the Democrats, who is made safer by your sanctuary city and state policies? That is the question they need to answer to the American people.
And you have more than 11 seconds, right? It's not 24 hours, but it's more than 11 seconds.
It absolutely is more than 11 seconds. I promise you that, Brian.
That was just a tease.
You can watch it all on Fox Nation. The latest episode is called 24 Hours. It's available now. Go to foxnation.com or download the app on your phone.
All right, Tommy. Thank you very much for joining us from the West Coast.
A major mobilization to help the people of Australia. Our own Anna Koyman is talking to American firefighters on the front lines.
I represent the U.S., and it's a good feeling to know that we're here and we can come here and support the Australians.
Firefighters across the globe all do the same thing. We're all in this together.
We are live in Sydney with how Americans are making an impact.
And now that the articles of impeachment have been brought to the Senate, mournfully, what can we expect next? Judge Napolitano's got to bounce in his... Wow, a Fox News alert now. Much needed relief is raining down on Australia as the country battles devastating bushfires.
Storms helping douse flames in some places nationwide, but firefighters warned the rain not enough. But the rain is also raising fears of flooding and ash getting into the water supply. Something else to worry about.
My word. Smoky haze blanketing cities like Melbourne and causing some breathing problems now. It's also delayed qualifying rounds at the Australian Open, the tennis tournament.
All right, with more information regarding 100 U.S. firefighters, they have now joined the effort to battle the wildfires. We've been telling you about that the last couple of days.
Former Fox and Friends weekend host Anna Koyman joins us live from the New South Wales Emergency Operations Center with the latest. Anna, good morning.
Well, if you remember, good morning to you and good morning to everyone at home, or good evening. It is 10:39 here p.m. in Australia on a Thursday evening. So I've got to tell you that this partnership between the United States and Australia is something that's been going on for more than 15 years. If you remember those wildfires we had in Northern California in 2018, more than 140 wildfire personnel came from Australia and New Zealand to help us out in the United States. Now the USA is returning the favor. Let's hear from a couple of those firefighters.
Balmoral was almost apocalyptic. The smoke was really thick. It was like being in a dream. You never expect a house across from a fire station to burn down because you run out of water. That's what happened.
Balmoral is where New South Wales lost 2 of their firefighters. Roger says he was so close to the flames, it was melting the paint on his truck. He also recalls another harrowing experience in the Southern Highlands where he was trapped in a home protecting a family of 6 surrounded by flames.
I was out doing recon work, and, you know, right where I was, I didn't feel the heat, but you could see the flames, and I would say pushing maybe 20, 30 meters. They were big.
What, the flames were 20 or 30 meters high?
Yeah, there must have been 100 kangaroos coming over this ridgetop and running away from the fire. And I went, oh boy, that can't be good. I wasn't going to leave until I knew they were okay.
This American-made Ericsson air crane is the largest helicopter being used in the Australian wildfires. More than 100 water-bombing aircraft are used here on a daily basis in the state of New South Wales alone.
Well, you literally have a bird's eye view of what these fires look like. How massive are they? I mean, we just hear that
they're miles, kilometers of miles. They're just stretching, and it's just a massive wall of fire.
We see these pictures of the firefighters coming in from America at Sydney Airport getting a standing ovation.
To have that generosity coming from overseas and bolstering our numbers, bringing in all that extra expertise, we generally appreciate it here in Australia.
I represent the U.S. and it's a good feeling to know that we're here and we can come here and support the Australians.
What it really shows is that firefighters across the globe all do the same thing. We're all in this together.
Well, the National Interagency Fire Center there in the United States are the ones sending over these firefighters from the U.S. Forest Service and the Department of Interior. And as you heard those firefighters saying, you fight fires in almost the exact same fashion across the globe, and that's why they're helping each other out. We also had a chance to interview a Canadian helicopter pilot who had helped in those Northern California fires. So everybody's scratching each other's back. It's a win-win.
It's all hands on deck. All right, Anna Koyman joining us from Sydney. Anna, thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Hope you get more rain in the next few days.
Yeah, no kidding.
Great report. Meanwhile, 18 minutes before the top of the hour.